Your calls live about any legal question you may have. Tonight we're talking about car and truck accidents. It's Memorial Day weekend. There are a lot of cars and trucks on the road, and there's bound to be an accident this weekend. So if anybody has a question about anything that might come out of that, give us a call. We're taking your calls live, 850-392-1544. And tonight we have a very special guest, repeat guest, Brian Connors is on the shows with us tonight.
I was demoted from host to guest from last weekend.
That's right, that's right. So we're talking about car and truck wrecks. It's a busy weekend.
It is.
So, I mean, you know, statistically speaking, there's going to be something that happens, unfortunately. And so whenever a wreck happens, there's always going to be legal issues, and we're here to answer those questions tonight.
No, if you have any questions about car wreck or any other accident type cases, please just give us a call. I think it's 850-392-1544.
Right.
We are taking calls tonight, so just call in. We'll answer any questions you guys have.
That's right. And I think we have an email question to start the night. Let's go ahead and put that up. Okay, email question says, I was injured severely in an accident a little over a year ago. I've been in quite a lot of pain due to it, and I'm aware that I originally had a great case. Can I still go through with my case, or due to the time limitations, have I lost that option? Brian, is 1 year too long to wait in order to hire an attorney and pursue a case?
So I think that's the most common question. I've been getting this more recently, is sometimes my clients want to wait until their medical treatment is done and kind of do everything on their own. And I think it's best if you have a serious legal issue, whether it's an injury case or otherwise, to go ahead and contact an attorney and have them assist you with the legal process. But I guess in Florida, it is a little bit different. So I think as of March 25th, 2023, what we call the statute of limitations is 2 years. In other words, you have 2 years to pursue a claim against somebody, either have a lawsuit filed or have a case settled. But prior to March 25th, 2023, it was 4 years to have any sort of injury claim against somebody. Right. It's wrongful death, the statute of limitations or the time frame is different. And then the big thing between states is the time frames are different. You're licensed in Georgia, right. So Georgia I think is 2 years, Alabama is 2 years, Florida is now 2 years, Tennessee is 1 year, but everywhere is a little bit different. Right. We used to be 4 years for an at-fault party, and then 5 years for a first-party claim, which technically we're still 5 years.
Yeah, you know, right now
it's a little hazy.
Yeah, we're kind of in this weird phase right now. So the statute changed last year to make the statute of limitations for bringing a personal injury claim 2 years. Prior to that statute going into effect, it was 4 years. So if you were in a wreck in 2021 or 2022, as long as it was after May,
I think May 25th,
May 25th or 26th, yeah. So as long as after today, 4 years ago, you still have a 4-year statute of limitations in order to bring a claim. Any claims arising after that May 25th date is going to be a 2-year statute of limitations. And so, you know, you talked about a year being too late. It's not too late to bring a claim, but really the biggest thing when we talk about bringing claims is, you know, what justifies payment of damages. And that really goes back to your medical treatment, your injuries, if you've lost time from work, if you've missed those things. We're going to have evidence in order to bring a claim. So 1 year is not too late to bring a claim. And as long as you've been seeking that medical treatment and building, you know, your damages case, getting the treatment, if you've missed time from work, incurred medical expenses, those are all things that we can bring a claim for even after a year. So it's not too late, but ideally you would contact an attorney shortly after a wreck, because there are a lot of other legal issues. There's legal issues dealing with health insurance. There's legal issues dealing with your auto insurance, the type of benefits you get under your own policy. There may be legal issues dealing with the defendant that caused the wreck. Is it a wreck that occurred while you were at work? Is it a wreck that occurred with somebody that was from out of state? There's a lot of different issues you have to look at. So the sooner the better you're going to want to contact an attorney.
No, I think the only other thing, which again, not to get in the weeds like sometimes we do, but for instance, now it's 2 years, so it's a kind of short time frame legally speaking, and everybody thinks 2 years is a long time, but sometimes medical treatment takes 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. But we have certain issues where if an at-fault party passes away unrelated to a car wreck, like an older gentleman has a heart attack, you know, a year after a wreck, you have a certain time frame where you have to file a claim with his estate or it expires. So pretty much the big thing is, if you have a legal issue, I know we say it every single week, is give somebody a call. The statute of limitations is, that's how malpractice happens.
Yeah.
Happens.
And you talk about contacting an attorney soon. I have a case actually right now where I represent an out-of-state party. They're a resident of North Carolina, and they were involved in a wreck 3 years ago. Now it's enough time to bring a claim for bodily injury against the at-fault driver, and it turned out that the person that struck this gentleman was a drunk driver. So it's a very clear liability case. He had injuries, he had treatment, he's had some problems since then, but because he was from a state that had a different statute of limitations for uninsured motorist coverage, he actually waited too long in order to contact us, because the state where he was from, uninsured motorist coverage, which is coverage that will compensate you in the event you're injured by somebody who does not have insurance or does not have enough insurance. The state where he lived, his uninsured motorist statute of limitations was 2 years. And he waited 3 years to contact us.
So he potentially, depending on the coverage,
depending on the coverage, depending on the underlying, what the at-fault party has, he potentially waited too long to avail himself of that valuable coverage. So again, something like this happens, you want to contact a lawyer. And the way we work is on a contingency fee. So you're not coming out of pocket to pay an attorney to tell you what your rights are, because with a contingency fee agreement, we don't get paid unless you get paid. We take it, our fee is a percentage of the recovery. And we can tell you if you have a valuable case, if it's worth pursuing, or if it's not. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. It really just depends.
And I've had the exact opposite thing happen, where it was a Florida case where one of my clients waited too long and the case against the at-fault driver expired. We ended up getting a case resolved with her insurance company, settled. She waited 4.5 years until after the car wreck, and we settled for, $45,000 or whatever it was. But that first line of coverage that was available, she got punished in her settlement for not pursuing it. So that's another reason to contact somebody.
Right.
Like, we could have added value if you just contacted somebody earlier.
Right.
And it happens all the time.
Yeah, and the thing is, the sad part of it is, life really does get in the way sometimes. People tend to minimize injuries to themselves and focus on other things that are more important to them. And there's nothing wrong with that. You've got a family, you've got a job, you've got kids you got to take care of. But oftentimes, in the eyes of an insurance adjuster, if you're not going to get treatment, if you're not going to the doctor or getting evaluated, their assumption is you must not be hurt. And that's one of the biggest things we have to deal with. People get in a wreck, they usually go to the hospital or they go to see their primary care doctor shortly after the wreck, get checked out. The standard operating procedure is say, all right, let's do some x-rays, nothing's broken, let's prescribe you some muscle relaxers, prescribe some anti-inflammatories, follow up with your doctor if you're having a hard time. And most people do that, and within a day or two, it's pretty common for people to be feeling pretty stiff, pretty stoved up, as they say. But if you don't get looked at in the eyes of an insurance adjuster, well, you must not be that hurt. And then time goes on, it gets worse, and that's just another hurdle we have to deal with if we're not involved very early. So again, an attorney can help you understand the claims process
and
help
avoid those pitfalls.
Yeah, help you understand how insurance companies think, because they're in their mind, they know they're responsible for what their insured causes in terms of damages, but they're very skeptical of claims, and so there's a lot of hoops and hurdles you have to jump through.
Which, again, I don't want to ever take the side of the insurance company, but sometimes they are right to be skeptical.
Sure.
Hey, this person didn't get medical treatment for 2 months. What was going on during that time frame? I had a case where it was a very significant car wreck, and my client went to the emergency room and then didn't see a doctor for like 52 days. But the reason is his mom had a cardiac issue and was at Shands in Gainesville, and he went and stayed with her for 52 days.
Right.
As soon as he gets back, he starts picking up his treatment for all the complaints he initially had, and I think they offered $8,000 or $9,000 and would not move off that. They said, hey, we don't know if any of this other stuff's related.
Because he waited so long.
Because he waited so long. So we ended up filing a lawsuit. Instead of an $8,000 or $9,000 claim, it was a $200,000 claim. So there's a good reason to contact an attorney to avoid those pitfalls or to advocate on your behalf. I explained that to the insurance adjuster, and she said, hey, we just need documentation of that. So we just filed a lawsuit in that situation. We had somebody testify, say, hey, she's in the hospital. She confirmed she was in the hospital with what was going on. And so we were able to actually explain all of his treatment, but the delay or gap in treatment, as insurance companies like to call it, was explained. So we were able to move forward. And it sometimes, if you hire a lawyer right away, we can avoid those pitfalls. But sometimes, like you said, life gets in the way.
Life gets in the way. That's right.
So you got to deal with stuff like that.
That's right. You do. All right. So Again, car and truck wrecks, we're taking your calls live, 850-392-1544. We're going to take our first break of the evening. So if you have one of those calls, get it ready to go, and we'll take it. Thanks for staying with us. Tonight is Law Call. We're taking your calls live tonight. We're talking about car and truck wrecks. So if you have a call, if you have a question, give us a call. I do that all the time.
It happens.
If you have a question, give us a call, 850-392-1544. And I think we have another email. I think we got an email from Bella, if you could put that up. Is that it? Oh, no, that's the email from, there it is, Bella's. I was in a car accident. The other driver was found at fault by the police. I thought everything was fine. I reported it to my insurance right away, but she didn't, and she hasn't responded to messages. I'm starting to get pretty angry because her insurance will not accept liability until they talk to her. Is there some sort of law requiring them to accept liability if she continues not to respond? Bella, that is a great question, actually, and it's one that we actually run into quite a bit, because once a wreck happens, the insurance company has a right to do their own investigation to determine who's at fault, because the person at fault is going to be the one that ultimately has to pay for the damages, whether it's to
Correct.
property or injuries. And so, what does Bella do? It sounds like the other person is ghosting her and her insurance company.
Well, it really depends. Like, I have a case right now where the at-fault driver didn't even respond to the lawsuit, but their lawyer did, and they can't find them. So the short version is the insurance company has a right to talk with their insured and investigate. But if it's a rear-end car wreck, it's a really easy call. You can normally bypass that.
Right.
If somebody runs to a stop sign at an intersection where there's only one stop sign, you can bypass that. It's more on those potentially
It's the he said,
disputed
she
liability
said.
cases where it gets a lot more difficult. But usually, I hate saying this, usually after about 7 to 10 days, if they haven't completed their liability investigation, it's a little bit on them, but there is always the chance, if the insured is not cooperating, it is messing up coverage or
Right,
jeopardizing coverage.
That's really kind of the big issue, Bella. So you're talking about the other person is not responding to you and not responding to her insurance company. Her insurance company, if it is determined that the other person was at fault for the wreck, then they are going to owe you to fix your car or replace your car if it's a total loss. And they're going to owe you for your medical expenses and your lost wages. And if you have a permanent injury, they may owe you for pain and suffering. But they have a right to do an investigation, and part of that investigation is interviewing their own insured to find out what their version of the story is. If a person is insured with an insurance company, they have a contractual agreement with that insurance company. And part of that contract says they have to cooperate with the investigation. And so what Brian was talking about is if this person isn't cooperating, then the insurance company is going to say, hey, our insured isn't cooperating with us. They've breached the contract.
We don't know what happened.
We don't know what happened. They've breached the contract. Therefore, we're not going to provide any coverage whatsoever. And in our situation, we're trying to get the insurance company engaged. We don't want them to disclaim coverage for a loss because their insured's not talking with them. So what typically happens is we do our own investigation and we provide that information.
Evidence. We are a lot more stern with the insurance company, so they kind of take us a little bit more seriously. They know we know the law. They know we can file a lawsuit. So they treat us a little bit differently. I don't want to say that with all insurance companies. There's about 2 or 3 which will drag their feet and say, hey, we have to talk to this one person. But a lot of times, if we are stern enough, they will accept liability. If we have a witness, if we have photos,
and if you have
we
a
give them a crash report.
Right.
That's one of the things we talk about all the time is even if you're in a minor car accident, which I have people that I know that call me and I have to tell them to call the police, you need to have it documented. Number one, so it's proof that it happened. You would be surprised how hard it is to find somebody if you don't, get their information. They write their name down. It could be John Smith, and their phone number is 850-123-4567. It's very hard to find John Smith sometimes.
Right.
So it's important if the police are there, they're getting everybody's driver's license, insurance information, verifying it. So calling the police always helps.
Right. The crash report will provide evidence, witness statements, things like that. But at some point, if the other side's not going to cooperate, then there is a coverage issue you have to deal with. But again, that's why you get a lawyer involved, because we can typically maneuver around that. So, Brian, we've talked a lot about car and truck wrecks. What about boating accidents? This is a very popular boating weekend.
It was a very big boating weekend. I was actually out at Shell Island, and normally, I would want to have a beer or two, but this is the weekend where you do not need to drink and operate a boat ever, especially when there is, 1,000 boats out there. And that is not even an exaggeration. We were navigating anchor lines and all sorts of boats, trying to figure out exactly where to park, and it can be difficult. So that's the big thing, but a lot of times, and most people don't think about this, there's no seatbelts.
So when and there's no brakes.
When a boat hits something, whether it's a boat, another person, a jet ski, I've seen people run into the jetties because they are not paying attention, they have autopilot on. It can cause a lot of issues. The biggest problem is if you don't have seatbelts on and you come to a complete stop after you're going 30 or 40 miles per hour, people go flying and there can be serious injuries, catastrophic injuries, death, and we've handled quite a few of those cases, and there's a lot of legal loopholes on those types of cases.
Yeah, one of the biggest things, if you've been involved in a boating accident, whether it's you're on a vessel that was not operated properly, or maybe you're from out of town and you rented a pontoon boat or a jet ski and you didn't get the proper training, or the equipment on it is not up to par. If there's an injury that arises out of that, you definitely need to talk to a lawyer, because there are a lot of legal issues. The first one being most cases involving, if not most, all cases involving boating accidents may be governed by federal law, federal maritime law.
Which is very different from running a red light or rear-ending somebody. It is very different.
It's a completely different ball game when you're dealing with federal maritime law and accidents that happen on the navigable waters of the state.
People don't necessarily understand who has the right-of-way, where a channel is, what you're supposed to be doing, what equipment is required, what a captain's responsibility is.
Right.
Like a lot of our cases, the captains are good captains, but they make a really bad mistake in it. I've had cases where people have been killed very badly or rendered quadriplegic.
Killed very badly?
Yes. In a very... we're not going to get into details here because it's a case where people were recently charged, so we don't need to really get into the details.
Right.
But no, the consequences can be catastrophic, whether or not you're going 20 miles per hour or 20 kilos an hour. It really doesn't matter. Whatever speed you're going, it can be catastrophic.
The bottom line is any sort of accident that you're involved in, whether it's on the highways, the roads, the navigable waters, involving a boat, a jet ski, a car, a truck, there are so many legal issues that arise, and there's so many different sets of statutes that apply to the types of claims that getting a lawyer involved early on is really the best bet.
And another thing is just getting the evidence. Like with car wrecks, we're on solid ground where you can go collect evidence, measure, if there's any sort of braking going on, and you can actually get video evidence and stuff like that. But with a boat, normally, I mean, the water's moving. So as soon as an accident happens, every debris is going everywhere. And if FWC or the Coast Guard are not investigating, we need people out there immediately. So
Right.
losing evidence does happen.
Right, that's right. So again, we're taking your calls live, 850-392-1544. We're talking about car and truck wrecks. We're talking about boating accidents. If you have a question about that, give us a call. We do have one more email that came in from Ron, I believe. Can we put that up? Okay. This says, I went to an event and an SUV rear-ended me after a traffic stop. The other guy's adjuster said all 4 occupants lied that I put my car in reverse. My car would have sensed the other SUV and not allowed me to reverse. I went to urgent care for my back and may make future visits. My car had $4,000 in damage. No damage or injuries for the other car. My insurance says not my fault. Other insurance says it's not their guy's fault. Now what? Is it better for me to fix it out of pocket rather than have a claim on my insurance? That is a lot going on there, Ron.
That's actually an easier question, honestly, than I would assume with all the details.
Yeah.
So you want me to hop in?
Yeah, hop in.
So the easier thing, assuming you have collision coverage, I would rather eat my $500 deductible and get my car repaired and let my insurance company handle it. Because I've only had this happen once where somebody made up a story about my client reversing, where if you're at a red light, you're not going in reverse. It makes zero sense. Yeah. But depending on the occupants, I mean, we have some questionable people we deal with. You can kind of look up their background and stuff like that, dash cams, get evidence. But eating the deductible would be a lot easier than actually arguing, fighting, trying to get the other insurance company to do it. And then your insurance company will take it to arbitration if it's actually disputed. And they will go ahead and go get your deductible plus the rest of the money back.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's an issue of timing. I mean, will you eventually win that argument? Yeah, probably. Will it take you 2 months to do it? Yeah, probably. And so if you have the type of coverage that will fix your car and you end up having to pay a deductible, that's the quickest way to do things oftentimes. It's not always the most desirable way because you didn't put your car in reverse at a red light and back into people. It sounds extremely, I don't know, who would do that? I don't know who would do that.
Again, it's rarely happens. But most people are honest when wrecks happen. I hate saying that, but most people are actually honest.
Yeah, most people say, yeah, I did that, and I'm sorry.
And they apologize, they ask if you're okay.
That's why they have insurance. But if somebody makes up a story, which it does happen, we have seen that happen. There's a quick way to sort it out, which isn't always the most desirable, but it is the quickest. And can get you back to where you need to be. Or if you have the option of waiting a little bit longer and sorting it out and saying, look, I'm not going to put this under my own insurance. I know I didn't reverse into this car. Then we can definitely fight that for you. It just takes a little bit of time because, again, you're dealing with an insurance company on the other side that is going to take their person's word for it, no matter how ridiculous it may sound. So, again, thanks for the email, Ron. We're going to take our last break of the night, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Hey, thanks for staying with us again. This is Law Call. We're taking your calls live, 850-392-1544. We are actually to our last segment of the night, so I know we have some shout outs to give, but you got an email.
I actually did get an email question from somebody.
Can you read that? I don't have
No,
my
I
reading
can't.
glasses, so
I
there's no way I
can't.
can see that.
There's a couple of typos, but essentially the person wants to know if you're in an accident, your car's repaired, is there a diminished value claim?
Absolutely.
So the short answer is usually there is. I normally prefer to prosecute those whenever it's, a 2 to 3 year old car or newer.
Right.
If it's a car that's 8, 9 years old, your car is worth probably not much more or much less.
Yeah.
But on newer cars, like if you have that Carfax thing, it can be anywhere between $1,000 or $5,000. So getting an estimate on what it's worth from a dealership happens all the time. So that's normally what we do. But yeah, if you have a newer car that's damaged and repaired, you do have a diminished value.
Yeah,
claim.
diminished value, basically, you got a dirty Carfax, you've got a right to recover the money the difference between what your car's worth without a wreck on its history or what it's worth with a wreck on its history. So yeah, it's every property claim. So be quick. I got shout outs.
I'm going quick on shout outs. I know Captain Brad is watching, Jimmy is always watching, Ben is watching. I know Captain Travis is watching as well. I'm shouting out too many people. Okay. Hopefully Chris Young is watching. He's been texting me during the show.
It's his birthday last week.
It was his birthday. Happy birthday, Chris Young. But I'll hand the rest over to Les.
Miss Pam, my mom and dad, Rick at the Marlin, my lovely wife Jen, my boy Eli, who's sitting over there off camera, Rachel, Vicky and her family, Gary Starr, thanks for watching, staff at Perry & Young, and my neighbors Jamie and Ed. Thank y'all for watching every weekend.
Y'all have a safe weekend.
That's it. Have a great weekend.